No, Gerald, I can't make it to record right now. I've got bigger problems.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast, where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. Dan's going to be thrilled that I remember to use the tagline this week. Gerald here with you, and of course on the other side is the atomic breath to my scaly back. I don't know what that means. Nicholas, and a Godzilla toy that he brought along for the recording.
Excuse you, this is Rexy.
It's Rexy, I'm sorry.
How dare you? Glasses guy fully endorses how ridiculous.
Glasses
yes,
guy.
what's going on, buddy? What's going on? Bald guy's not bald. Apparently when the Panthers have won their second game of the season, it's time to start sporting all the Panthers merch you can. Gerald, did you go to the game this weekend that you could have gone to for 45 cents?
No, but I did get. I had a chance to go, but I had to work, and I'm kind of glad I did because it was pouring down rain. So
you know why you had a chance to go? Because the stadium was empty.
Yeah, it's brutal. It is brutal.
I'm a Giants fan. I've got no room to talk, but
yeah, you've lived through it. But it is a rough year for the Panthers. We're talking about the Carolina Panthers, guys, and it has been a rough year for me as a fan of theirs. But hey, I'm a fan, man. So I got hats. I got I got the license plate border on my car, and everybody probably laughs at me as I drive down the interstate.
As they should.
That's fine.
Yep.
So this week, Nick, we are pivoting a little bit. We didn't really know where we were going to go this week. We really, really wanted to get Bradley Cooper's Maestro on the docket for the Peas, but it's Christmas week, man. It's just tough to do the scheduling. However, both of us have seen Godzilla -1, which has kind of taken over the world in the last month or so.
Yep.
So we're going to be reviewing that one this week. I'm excited to talk to you about it, buddy.
I mean, listen, expecting me, and here's the other thing too. I love going to the theater. All right, I will say that like literally as much as I possibly can for any movie at any point in time if I can get to a theater. The problem is when you only have a movie playing 3 times a day. I'm working for one of those times, so it limits it to 2 times a day that I got to try to make it to a theater with 80 million other things going on. It's just, it's not possible. Joey DiCarlo, I'm sorry. I can't live the pod before life mantra as well as the So Wizard crew can. Please forgive me.
Oh yeah, nobody can.
But yeah, I mean, here's the other thing too, is Maestro, it's a drama, number 1. But number 2, it's going to be dropping on Netflix like within the next couple days. Like by the time this episode's out, it comes out the day after this episode lands.
Right.
Like I can watch it at any time from that point forward, from the safety and comfort of my own home.
Well, I think what we'll do, that's a good segue, actually. I think what we'll do is we're going to put a review for Maestro probably up on Patreon. We'll do a quick, 20-minute episode or whatever talking about that film, and we can throw it up on Patreon whenever you and I can sit down to do that. But the reason I bring that up is because I wanted to say thank you to the patrons. We put it in the show notes, and we have a lot of our patrons in our Discord and our Twitter chat. But we've got some new ones. Heidi, Samuel, our boy Justin Winters. Winters.
Man, I love you, Big Dub.
Yeah, dude. He joined up over there last month. So we have a lot of new patrons as well. And I just wanted to shout them out real quick. And we'll make sure to get them inputted into the credits and the show notes as well. But you guys are awesome. We're going to be in the new year kind of revamping the tiers a little bit. And we're going to be doing more reviews, like mini reviews over there on Patreon. We're going to incorporate the Discord
content
channel
over there.
Actual content will be available to the patrons. And we'll incorporate the Discord channel, which I'm learning daily what that service can do. So I get made fun of for being the old guy on the lawn with his fist at a cloud, but that's me. But we'll figure all that stuff out. But I just want to say a quick thank you. And since Nick joined the show about 6 months ago, it's been great.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We love you, man. And it means everything that people support this, silly little movie show that you do, that Glasses Guy has hopped on to ruin every take about every movie on the planet.
Glasses Guy here to bring down every horror score. Yeah, every horror score is suffered since you joined the show. But whatever.
Average, baby. Ooh,
we'll see how Godzilla -1 shapes up against your scoring system over there. All right, now before we get into the review of Godzilla minus one tonight, we start every episode with what we call one big question, Nick.
You've got to ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
All right.
Hey.
So
Nobody invited you.
So we switched it up a little bit last week, Nick, and we said, you know what? We're going to grab a question that the fans pitch us, but we're going to use that as our one big question and kind of answer it together or give our individual answers of it or whatever. So this week you decided to pick the question. Whose question is it and what is it? And let's talk about it.
So yeah, G, I picked a question from, I believe, new patron recently, Kayla McCoy, over in the listener community, the fan page, whatever you're calling that thing over there on the Book of Face. Kayla asked, could we have made the sacrifice that Shikishima was going to make for the good of humanity? So, I mean, I guess we got to tear the spoiler wall down early before we even get into the review.
Wow.
Because this
this
is philosophical. This is like existential kind of stuff. So Godzilla's gonna stomp through the spoiler wall here really quickly to talk about one spoiler for the movie. So
let's just do the spoiler warning. You want to? We might as well do it now.
Well, here it is. Godzilla's gonna stomp through it. Are you ready? Here he comes.
Yeah.
There he goes. He just blazed right through it. Gonna get all the mileage out of that roar that I possibly can. So at the end of the film, that's his plan. So he was a kamikaze pilot in World War II, and his plan is essentially we'll talk about a lot of this stuff when we get into the review of the movie and everything like that as well, because he's got a lot of survivor's guilt and PTSD, as it were, from his experiences in the war, and he plans to fly his plane with a giant bomb in it into Godzilla's mouth and blow him up.
Right.
And in this circumstance, now, G, again, look, look at this thing behind me here, and tell me you want to fly a plane into that thing's mouth. I think Beast. Listen, here's the thing, like, I think you kind of mentioned it. I can't even remember what we were reviewing not long ago, where I think it was Saw X, when it was like, could we saw off our own leg to try to survive a saw trap or something like that? And you were kind of like, I don't know until I'm put in that position, like really how I would react. And like, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, I would like to believe that I would. I would like to believe that I would, had I the skill and the talent to do something to stop this big rampaging monster that looks like, Gerald with a hangover, like coming ashore and like trying to rip us apart. Could I like, try to do something to try to save the world? Especially, you think about where this character is at that point in his journey as well.
Yeah.
Like, if you take that into account as well, like, I want to say yes, but I mean, again, it's kind of to swing back to Gerald a few weeks ago with Saw X. I don't know.
Yeah.
How to? That's such a cheap cop out, Kayla. And I'm sorry to pick your question and be like, I don't know.
Good question, but also I can't answer it. Next, for me, I agree with you. Is that I think it's pretty obvious that we don't really know, and honestly, he didn't really know. And we'll talk about the aftermath and kind of what happens, even though we're kind of already spoiling. But we'll wait until like major spoilers so we get into the conversation. But what I want to say, though, that's an interesting kind of like wrench into the plan of whether or not I would or would not do it is the kid.
Yep.
The little girl.
Yeah.
As a father, I have 3 children. I know you have kids. I think, and I mean, of course, I don't know because I'm only seeing it through my perspective, but I feel like folks that have kids might think differently about that because everything I do is for my kids. So you could say on a larger scale, I'm doing that for my kids, right? Because if I don't and Godzilla, destroys the city they live in, then they die anyway. But it's like, I don't know. I just feel like I would have that lingering desire to be their parents, and I wouldn't want to leave them not knowing what would happen if I was gone. I don't know. It's like a weird protective like thing. I kind of need to know what's going on with my kids. So Kayla, I'm also kind of copping out and saying I don't know really, but I don't know. I feel like the kid would, I don't know, man. It would make it really, really tough. Do you get what I'm saying, Nick?
So I'm going to give a response that I know that Dan Brennick is going to love. All right, you alien a-holes. In the words of my generation, up yours, and then he flies the plane right up into the spaceship. Yeah, I would do it because yeah,
I
even
thought you were gonna
he had
say. I
kids
thought
and he wanted his kids to be proud of him, and they thought he was just some drunk conspiracy theorist and
I thought
stuff.
you were
But they
gonna
ended up
say.
saving the world, maybe.
I thought you were gonna say that meme of Michael Jordan where he's like, "Fuck them kids." Dan would like that one too. Um, yeah, so I guess I'm kind of like with you, Nick. Like, I kind of hope that I would do the right thing there, but I'd feel like the kid might kind of make me second guess my, you know, what I end up doing there. So, good
Think about
question though.
how many children are going to be destroyed by Godzilla's
I
atomic breath if you
know,
don't do it, Gerald.
I know.
Come on,
That's a good point.
strap
That's a good
on
point.
strap
I
on
got to do
all
it.
of your Panthers gear, and you might just scare Godzilla away. Like if you just run at him wearing all the Panthers gear, might
Got to do it. You gotta drive the Panthers beanie right into the mouth there and let it explode.
get it,
I agree with you.
I
I agree with you.
get it.
Kayla's been around for a while, by the way, Nick. She's been a patron for hell, probably like a year or so now. She's been around for a minute. She's gone to a couple screenings with me. We went to see the Iron Claw last week. She's local to me. She used to work with me, so I appreciate her as a patron.
We are
and as
very
a
very
friend.
grateful. I do
Absolutely.
apologize that you have to spend time in person with Gerald. I've done it. I know the pain. I
It's
feel the
supposed to be
pain too.
perks, you know. Yeah, it's not supposed to be punishments for But she's on a special tier, I guess. I
The
don't know.
top tier of Patreon, like if you subscribe with the top tier when we redo them next year, it's going to be like Gerald will never come hang out with you or spend
Yeah,
time with you. That's the top tier.
you'll never have to see a movie with Gerald. Kayla's like rejoining tears.
I want
Okay,
to see Iron Claw. I don't think it's open here.
not yet. It comes out the 22nd. But yeah, it's a good one, man. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm going to do a mini review on YouTube for that one. Probably hopefully Thursday or Friday this week. So, all right, let's get into the discussion for Godzilla Minus One. Now, before we start dissecting the film and talking about what we liked or disliked or whatever, we always give our score out of 10 up front. We have not discussed it with each other and what we call the early score reveal, Nick.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm gonna score and then I never score. It's not fair.
God, jeez.
All right.
It's terrifying.
Now, I think we have to just show the score in the spirit of the segment. So I'm going to count us in, and we'll do that. But I have a lot of kind of asterisks to go along with my score, especially if you give me shit. But I got. I'm not changing it. I'm not changing it.
He's immediately got to qualify it. He hasn't even shown it to us yet. He's already got to qualify it.
It be what it be, brother. All right.
All right.
You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hey!
Perfect score from the P's. Look at
I
that.
can't believe it.
Oh,
I mean, I guess I can believe it, but let's let the audio audience know. So it's a
Here,
10
hang on,
out of
he's gonna-
10 for me
there we go. Rexy's got the 10 in his mouth now.
and a 10 out of 10 from Nicholas.
Come on now.
Now, the important question before we get into discussing the score is, what is 20 divided by 2?
I
think that's a 10.
I quit the show. I quit the show. I'm out of here.
I think that's a 10 as well.
I'm
So
outta
10
here.
from the P's on Godzilla Minus One. Looky there, man. All right, let me start,
0.
Nick. So, in the kind of general thoughts up front here, even though we'll just talk about whatever because we already started. By the way, spoilers. We mentioned it before, but spoilers going forward. If you have not seen Godzilla Minus One, I know it got extended and theatrical, presumably till the new year. So go see it, especially on a big screen. Nick touched on that a little bit earlier, but yes,
This is a
spoiled.
movie you have to see this in the biggest format you possibly can. If it's in IMAX, is it playing in IMAX? I don't know if it's playing in IMAX. Whatever.
It is.
If it is, it's playing near you, and you can get to see it in IMAX. If I could spare the time to get to Syracuse, I don't even know if it's playing in Syracuse. I'm just talking out my butt, so I don't even know.
That's fine.
But yeah, I mean, see it on the big screen. This movie demands the big screen. It demands it.
It really does. You know, I saw this on the big screen. I took my son Logan to see it. And I don't know if you saw our little quick reaction that we did after it, Nick. A couple weeks ago we saw it, but Logan, I tweeted about it after. I said, put his quote on the poster because my son, now he's 10, granted, But he comes out of the theater and we're doing our little quick reaction, and I'm like, what'd you think? And he said something to the effect of, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think that's the most entertaining movie I've ever seen in my life. That's what he said. That's what he said. And so him and I are talking about it, and I gotta say that I like to use him as an example because it does show the broad appeal of a movie like
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
where it can capture the young at heart like that, and then like you and I obviously loved it too, and then obviously folks that are connected to the old Godzilla kaiju stuff will love it. I assume will love it. So it kind of spreads the love regardless of the demographic. I feel like it's a really genuine, heartfelt human story. And then on top of that, you just have what I think is amazing creature feature with the Godzilla aspects. I just think that the only thing I really wanted to mention at the top here is that I saw it initially with him, and it was a 10 out of 10, right? And his reaction to it and just being so amped up by it and connecting with him on it. And I just loved everything about it. It was just a great experience in the theater, and it was a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So I got a screener for it like a week ago, and I rewatched it at home. The same feeling. And that's when I said, you know what? This is a 10 out of 10 for me. This is easily in the running, top 3 or so of the year for me right now. Though we'll do that episode in a few weeks, but it's definitely going to be in the running. One of my favorite movies of the year, one of the best action movies I've seen in a long time, one of the best like creature feature movies I've seen in a minute. So yeah, general thoughts on it for you, buddy. You got a 10 from you as well.
I mean, you're exactly right. What's the weakest part of every big monster movie, every big kaiju movie, anything like that? What's the worst part of it every single time without fail?
No characters, no human characters.
Yeah, it's the human story, like literally nonstop. All you had to do was give us a really, really great, compelling human story. And I mean, we're gonna talk about the G. We're gonna talk about this big lizard
Sure.
behind me. He's gonna bite me,
Yeah.
swimming up on me. Like, we're gonna talk about the Godzilla stuff and everything like that, obviously in the film. But I think like a lot of times these films like really, it's kind of like you're almost just waiting for the monster stuff to happen because you're just like, all right, yeah, okay, we
Mhm.
get it. Like, blah blah blah. Like what was it in like the Kong v Godzilla movie or whatever? Like we had like the conspiracy theorist podcaster, because that's of course what every podcaster is in a Hollywood production, and 11
Yeah.
from Stranger Things, and like all these other weird different things. We had like when they had Godzilla fighting King Ghidorah in King of All Monsters or whatever, they had like that. Was it like 4 hours that Vera Farmiga stopped the movie in the middle of it to give just endless exposition about stuff?
True.
The human
True.
stuff is always like by far the weakest aspect of these movies. But what they decided to do in this movie, and we're going to butcher every single name that we're going to try to pronounce in here.
Oh yeah, I can't do
Probably
it. Yeah.
not going to try to pronounce too many of them, but we have to mention written and directed and with visual effects done by Takashi Yamazaki. I'm going to pronounce all these wrong, and I do profusely apologize,
Yamazaki.
but I'm going to do my best here. But what he does is he transports this film into post-war Japan. So this is post World War II, and essentially makes this a movie about survivors' guilt for our main hero, Shikishima, who we already mentioned. It makes it just kind of like this little like found family movie as well. And it also makes it just kind of about like the people of a country reclaiming like their national pride a little bit in the wake of obviously a pretty devastating defeat in the war. It's kind of all those things all wrapped up in one, and it's really freaking good. Like, and I mean like really, really, really good. Like the performance from I'm gonna get his name wrong here. I'm so sorry. Ryan Soke Kamiki, who is the main star, who is Shikishima, it's so good. Like you can feel like the trauma, the post traumatic stress that character is enduring from the Godzilla attack on Odo Island. Everybody there that was killed, and he was only there because he was a kamikaze pilot that ran away from his duty.
Yeah.
And
Right.
whether he agreed with it or not, he still feels that intense sense of
And
pride, that intense sense of honor, and not having completed this mission, even if he disagreed with it. And I mean,
right.
even to take it one step further. Now, granted, I don't know a lot about Japanese culture and like their feelings toward like World War II and things like that, like in general, but
Mhm.
I thought, at least from my perspective, I thought it was really, really great to see a Japanese film set in post-war Japan criticizing so carelessly throwing away life, like Japan did during the war, like kamikaze pilots and like all that different stuff. And like that whole, I mean, we've all seen 1.5 million World War II movies. We've all heard 1.5 million
Mhm.
stories, read all the books and all those different things about like, dying, like literally killing yourself to die with honor as opposed to surrendering, like that kind of thing. Like
Right.
we've seen that a million times. So I really, really love, one of the things that resonated most with me, G, I think, was that commentary in this film about, no, life is more precious than that. Life should not be so easily and carelessly thrown away and tossed aside like that. And
Right.
I
I
really,
think
really love that.
I agree. I think Yamazaki, the filmmaker, did a really special thing here because, and again, I'm not really talking about the Godzilla stuff yet either. I obviously want to, but right now I'm talking about the human stuff that you're touching on. But he did a really special thing because in the opening sequence, we kind of learn the kamikaze pilot background.
Hmm.
We kind of see that he kind of ran away from his duty. We don't really know why. Like, we don't know if if he was a coward or like, it's kind of ambiguous really in the beginning. But what I think and what I bought into is the through line throughout the rest of the movie, all the way to the ending sequence that we kind of already touched on in One Big Question, is that there was a reason why, he wasn't just a suicide pilot or whatever.
Hmm.
There's a reason why, is because he was an important piece to the arc of this film, of this story. And along the way, we endeared ourselves to him as kind of this underdog character and this found family. And I already mentioned the little kid in this movie, which
Hmm.
I feel like brought a lot of levity to those of us that have kids and allowed us to connect on that level as well. But I think that kind of seeing that in the beginning and kind of not really knowing and kind of feeling out this character, and I was kind of like, what the fuck, what's this guy's deal or whatever, like maybe this is just a catapult for the Godzilla stuff because we get him pretty early on in that first sequence. But to see the beats of the character along the way, because the survivor's guilt that you mentioned, which is a constant theme in this movie, and honestly is probably a theme that a lot of Japanese people from that era felt, because cities were being obliterated by nuclear weapons and like whatever, and if you're still alive and the rest of your family and friends and coworkers and everybody are dead, you probably do have a sense of that survivor's guilt. So I think it's more on a broader scale, the country and the townspeople too.
Yep.
But the young lady who I thought did a great job too, which I'll also butcher her name, but I think
Minami
what was
Hamabe.
yeah, she was
Noriko.
Noriko, right?
Yep.
Noriko. But she saves him in the city attack, which by the way was fucking awesome. But I don't want to get off track here. But anyway, she saved him, and we presume she dies because it's a fucking wasteland after that, and he's literally the only fucking person alive there. So the survivor guilt comes back, right?
Yep.
And it's just always a thing that's with him. And you can see now, though, as we get to that middle part, and definitely by the end of the movie, you can see it's not because he's a coward or like he's lazy or none of that stuff. It's just because he has really connected to people finally, and there's an overlying commentary here, I feel like, on the Japanese people in general, and the way we're meant to kind of see them in this era in history. Because you look at a movie like Oppenheimer, which we reviewed earlier this year. Imagine this is a double feature. I mean, a Godzilla movie, a kaiju movie, a monster movie, you're not supposed to really kind of think about on like the same level you would think of like an Oppenheimer.
Hmm.
I mean, people don't necessarily think that way, but like it is a really profound human story with elements of history built into it. And I mean, I'm not like Brian Loy. I'm not the kaiju expert or anything like that. But I'll just tell you that in any of the Godzilla movies I've seen, which is probably, I don't know, anywhere from maybe 10 to 12 of them, I've never felt that. I've always felt like, where's Godzilla? I don't care what these people are talking about. You know what I mean? And this is the first time that I was watching kind of two movies at once in a Godzilla feature, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, even when the Godzilla stuff is happening, as amazing as it is, it's we're worried about how are these characters going to escape from these situations, like
Right.
how, like, he's got this found family and everything like that, and then we know that Godzilla is making its way to shore, and that he's out there in a minesweeping vessel, clearing mines out of the sea after the war because of all the spent mines that are just sitting out there. And I really really I really really loved all of that, and like his struggle to really really connect with Noriko because of his guilt, and because, like, it's almost like he feels like he's lost his honor, and he's got to do something to get it back, because honor
Yeah.
is such a big thing to the Japanese people. And I really really love all of that, and he kind of just ignores, not that he really really ignores, but like he really doesn't see the family, the found family that he has with Noriko, and Akiko is the little girl. He
Hmm.
doesn't really see the value in that, and he doesn't really see that found family until it's too late, and like she's
Thinks he's
presumably
going to lose
gone.
him, right? Hmm.
And then it's like you said, like all of a sudden all of the survivor's guilt that he already feels, that he's already still suffering from, all the PTSD from the attack on Odo Island, now it just revisits him all over again, and that kind of ignites this fire in him where he's determined to take down, it's essentially like Godzilla in a way in this movie is his fear. Godzilla in a way in this movie is like a literal physical manifestation. I mean, obviously it's a lot of different things, but like in
Sure.
this movie it's really like a manifestation of like his guilt and his lack of honor, the lack of honor he feels he has anyway. So beautifully written. It's I'm not doing it justice here, unfortunately. It's really really beautiful. It's really 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 well acted. I was in love with every single bit of the human aspect of this story, so that I wasn't just immediately, when the destruction was over, when the next Godzilla scene ended, I wasn't just like, all right, now we got to wait for the next one. Now a bunch of people are going to talk about a bunch of stuff, and then we get to get back to more cool stuff. I was so invested the whole way through this, and that's why, like, it has to propel to that perfect score for me. I could watch this movie again and again and
Yeah.
again and again and again and again and again. Absolutely, absolutely incredible. Everything that
Yeah.
a good
I,
monster movie should be is this. Please, American screenwriters, please take notice of the human story in this film. Like, you need good, compelling human characters. I really think that Gareth Edwards' Godzilla in 2014, I think it had most of one. A lot of people aren't necessarily fans of Alan Taylor Johnson's performance in that, but I thought that, like, establishing the relationship between he and his father, played by Bryan Cranston in that film, really gave the film a good emotional core, so that when Godzilla and the Mutos show up, you kind of care about them. And the rest of the movies haven't really had a whole lot of that. I mean, if you give us compelling human characters, like, I know that we're all super excited to talk about, and even the audience listening to hear about our thoughts about all the Godzilla stuff too, but I want
yeah.
to be entertained the whole way through. I don't want to just be able to watch a YouTube compilation of the best bits later and be like, well, I saw the movie, I'm good.
Right, right. And I feel like you can't do that with this movie. You really
No.
need to be invested in kind of the backstory of a lot of the people. What I wanted to mention, it kind of really is going to be a different version of kind of what you said, but it's just like, and I kind of said earlier that it's two different movies, but I just love that, in previous Godzilla installments, even the 2014 one that you were talking about,
Yeah.
with actors that I know, like Cranston and others, like, I just didn't care, like, about those human characters. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't emotionally invested in their outcome. And I'm not picking on that movie. I'm talking about even if you go all the way back, because obviously it initially was really about Godzilla stomping on the cities and people running for their lives, and we get that in this movie. But what's different and what's really fascinating to me is that there's certain people that the film does such a good job of connecting you to, that you're like, please don't stomp on those people. you know? Like, don't drop the train that she's hanging from on her way to work or whatever, because I'm connected to her now. I know that she's raising this little girl that she, you know what I mean? So, like, if that had just been a Japanese woman on a train in any of the previous films, that's kind of the way it would have played out. But in this movie, it really takes the time to connect you. You know, that's
Yeah.
the best way I can put it. It's an emotional Godzilla movie, which is frankly kind of unheard of. I mean, there might be a few scenes here and there in other movies you could pick out, but this is a really emotionally investing film that you kind of take seriously. I know it can. I've seen some of the criticism. It can be melodramatic at times and like whatever. It never played like that for me. Like, I was never like, okay, this is overacting. These people are being a little much. Like, I never felt that way. I was always like believable in their characters.
From who though? Like, who's giving these criticisms? Because like when I'm watching those performances,
Our boy Brad, for one, and also he doesn't like the creature
But
effects. So whenever you're ready to segue to that, let me know.
Brad sucks. We
Brad
all know
does
it.
suck.
Well,
Hashtag
like,
Brad sucks.
man.
That's the next tier on Patreon. The Brad sucks tier.
No, like I really I think I think that's just I'm not granted I'm not super familiar with Japanese cinema, so I can't criticize it from that aspect, because it felt like it made sense to me in like the way that the scenes were shot, and the way the performances kind of carried.
Right.
Like,
Same.
I don't know enough about Japanese cinema to say that like that's not just a kind of that might be like the whole, like, I know Dan, who's editing this, like really hates high talking fast trousers guys, like old school like
Sure.
acting from like the early like black and white days and things like that, where everybody like, you know, had that very stagey kind of voice where they all talked
Sure.
really fast and all that stuff. You know, but that might just be what they do there. I don't know that. And it didn't ring false to where it took me out of the movie or anything like that. Like, the performances I thought were perfectly fine, perfectly effective.
Yeah, me too.
You know, and like the rest of it, like I'm a white dude from Pennsylvania, lives in upstate New York, man. I don't know squat about, you know, the you know, Japanese culture and cinema and like how they perform and things like that.
The only minor thing that I thought about after my first viewing was how, when he finds her at the end in the hospital, it was so emotional, but she's like barely got any like boo-boos on her. She's like clean and like beautiful. Like, there's like one scratch on her forehead. That was the only thing where I was like, all right, they could have like made her look a little more roughed up. You know what I mean? So that I've seen that thrown out there too. But let's talk about.
Wait a minute. Hold.
Go ahead.
Time
Go
out.
ahead. Yeah.
Time out.
Yeah, sure.
This is a character who is wrapped like head to toe in bandages. One of her eyes and everything, like literally half of her head and face is
I'm
covered
just
with
saying,
bandages.
go back and look at it. I mean, I don't know.
You're just like, oh, well, should they not have bandaged her up, Gerald? Should she have just been sitting
No,
in
she's
bed
fine.
like burnt and charred from atomic breath?
I'm good. I'm good. It's just one thing I noticed.
It's like
I'm good.
half covered in bandages, like a bandage like over one eye and like half of her face, and it's like, boy,
Yeah,
they really
no.
could have roughed her up a little bit more, you know?
Yeah, it's not enough, you know. Come on, it's Godzilla.
God.
Atomic breath. I mean, let's go. Let's transition to the monster stuff. Let's talk about Godzilla in this movie, man. Let's talk about some of the
before we get there, though,
effects.
I want to ask you, because there's one other like subset of characters we really get that are like, you know, side characters in this, and that's like the boat crew.
I love them.
Thoughts on the boat crew?
Love them.
Yeah.
A real Jaws feel, and I've seen that. I've seen that similarity pointed out from other people.
Just look, it's right here behind me.
But it's literally.
I've even seen the
Comrade.
screenshots like back and forth, like literally, you know, of like the comparison of like the, you know, Jaw sequences and things like that.
Yeah, I
Definitely
love
heavily
that.
inspired.
I love that, camaraderie that they, gain over time. And even when they find out about his kind of kamikaze background, you can see them kind of questioning it, like, because like you said, honor is such a huge thing. But I think, like us, the audience, they kind of sense a larger purpose for him too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they kind of are more accepting of it than, just a standard person in the population would be. But I loved it. I thought, we're going to talk about the effects and the sequences with Godzilla, but I mean, the ones on the water were just awesome because, again, you're so connected to the people on that boat.
Yeah.
I mean, you really are. I mean, like when the big like steamliner comes in the one scene and it ends up getting destroyed in the atomic breath and it basically explodes right in front of them. I didn't care because I was just like, oh yay, the little Jaws wooden ship that could is still okay, and those guys are going to get out now. Like the film just did such a good job at connecting you to the important characters that you were supposed to be rooting for. But it's really weird for me to say that because I always root for Godzilla. Like I just love the monster just destroying shit. I've always been a Godzilla guy, but this movie did a good job of conflicting me as a viewer, which has never happened before when Godzilla was on screen.
That's
So
because this movie made Godzilla mean, man.
yeah, it's
This
brutal.
Godzilla is big and he's mad.
Yeah,
So mad. Look at I love video audience. You guys are getting the shot of him here behind me, but he looks deranged in this shot.
yeah,
He
he's
looks
not happy.
like a psycho, angry, deranged murderer who's just coming to literally chow down on every single man, woman, and child in Japan.
Yeah, he's not happy.
It's not a happy lizard, man.
Nah. That's yeah, I don't want to be in his path, that's for sure. So you want to talk a little bit about the effects now. I mentioned Brad earlier and we were kind of riding on him or whatever, but anybody that's critical of the movie has kind of talked about the effects and of Godzilla himself and how it kind of moves robotic.
It moves like a dude in a suit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Japanese Godzilla movie.
I loved it because of the authenticity to the original films. Speak it, brother. Speak it, because I agree with you.
That's literally I saw it move around and I know in the Gareth Edwards movie and those movies they try to make it look like a bear,
Yeah,
move
true.
around like a bear, but it literally it moves around like it's a dude in a dude in a Godzilla suit. It's not.
Yeah.
But I really love it's kind of like you said, it's that stroke of authenticity. It's paying homage to decades and dozens of Godzilla films in Japanese film history where it's always a dude in a suit. And that's they keep that true to that character
They
design.
do.
So yeah,
I love
he
it.
stomps around and moves like he's a dude wearing a big fat foam suit with fins and a tail and stuff like that on it.
But it's still very scary. It's still very sinister. The scenes where he's destroying the city, especially in the atomic breath scenes, we get a few of those. There's a lot of emotional heft to those scenes because it's not like the old days where you knew it was a dude stomping around on, little plastic people or whatever. It was this is fucked up. These people, their entire city has just been demolished. And, the one character that we were connected to, we thought he lost the only person that really mattered to him. And it was just, I don't know, man. It was something different about it, but it still had those elements of the old movies from 50, 60 years ago, where it was in other words, if you could take that and bring it to 2023 and then obviously improve the effects, which they obviously did, because it's 60 years later. Of course they did. But also you incorporate the story that we've been talking about and the screenplay and the character development that we've been talking about. And you get this perfect recipe, which is -1. It came out, we both gave it a 10. Especially if you're talking about in the realm of monster movies or creature features, this is as good as it gets. I honestly am having trouble even thinking of a movie that I would put in the ranks of this one when we're talking about monster movies, especially in modern day.
Yeah, it's first of all, when it walks around in the city and things like that, and when it's destroying stuff, it's not just accidentally stepping on a building or accidentally doing whatever. It just straight up just turns that big heavy body through stuff and just literally reduces buildings to rubble. like absolute paper. And I really really love that. But I think like honestly, like the real reason that I have to give this movie a 10 out of 10, Gerald, is there are a few times, and every time a movie can do it, it gets perfect score from me. If you can unhinge my jaw from my face and leave it on the floor of the cinema,
Hmm.
that's gonna get you a perfect score literally every time. And that like two different times in this movie.
But Saltburn didn't do that for you.
Well, I had to unhinge my jaw to fit in the bathtub so I could, you know, drink up the
I'm gonna break that logic.
drink up the
All right, go ahead.
bathwater.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, because nothing in Saltburn shocked me, Gerald. Like,
That's fine.
I live in the age of the internet, baby. I've seen way worse than the things in Saltburn, buddy.
That's fine.
But like, it's first of all, like these scenes, these shots of Godzilla chasing the boat are so good, so tense, so incredible. Like I was rewatching like a couple of the scenes basically to get this screenshot for the background today, and it's harrowing. Like it looks so good as this just big, mean, angry bastard of a lizard is just swimming up behind you, and he wants to eat you. He gonna eat you. He gonna eat your boat. He gonna eat everything.
Hmm.
That and then, gee, atomic breath is atomic in this movie. This isn't
Really?
just a little laser blast. This isn't just a little
No.
little baboosh or whatever.
Yes.
Like first of all, the sequence of like locking the dorsal fins, like the dorsal fins like chunk, 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 chunk,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that
Yeah, that's
hard
good.
sounding noise. It's like almost like if you were throwing like a big giant lever, like ka-chunk, ka-chunk,
That's
ka-chunk.
good, man.
The power builds up, and he takes that big breath, and then boom, the fins lock in place, and he shoots that thing out like a friggin' laser cannon, and then just that massive eruption, mushroom cloud explosion
Yeah. It's
levels the whole city. Like, dude, I was legitimately in the cinema, just
I know.
like no kidding. I was so blown away by that. It was
And
so
we didn't
like
even.
pun
It,
intended,
we,
I guess, but
yeah, you were blown away by it. Yeah.
so blown away by it, dude. Like it literally, like it made the little kid in me who loves monster movies and things like this legitimately giddy at how good it was. Just
Yeah, we didn't
loved
mention
it.
how when he's descending on the city in that scene, the main city scene that you're talking about that leads up to the atomic breath, but that scene starts with her going to her new job on the train, and we know based on dialogue that she's going to the city that he's also attacking.
Yep.
And we're like immediately like, oh God, that's where she's going.
Yep.
You know, and I actually said that to my son. We were watching. I was like, that's where she's going. And anyway, so she's there, but we didn't even mention when she sees Godzilla descending on the city, it drops that original score, dude. When the original score hit, bro, I was like, oh shit. They are really trying to like tickle nostalgia, but like this is also, like you said, so harrowing and like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And what ends up happening is the fucking city is demolished from essentially the replication on screen of a nuclear weapon, which is his atomic breath. And the only survivor, of course, is our boy out there in a wasteland,
Yep.
So now he's back to his ghost and his PTSD and everything. So it just brings us right back to kind of the origin of the movie to begin with. But, I love the symbolism. I think it's a really deep movie that you didn't really expect. And I was actually going to talk about this in the beginning before we even got into the details of the movie. But didn't you think that -1 kind of snuck up on us? Like, I don't know. I just felt like this movie kind of came out of nowhere this year because we're doing all this kind of like end of the year watching, and me and Nick are going to be doing our best movies of the year in a couple weeks. And like, I've watched like a shit ton of movies, and I was like, oh, I love Godzilla. Like, the trailer looks cool. I had early screen. I took my son to see it. I'm like, this is going to be great. And I don't know. I just didn't hear a lot of chatter about it beforehand. And I came out of the theater. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this was awesome. And I don't know, I just felt like it kind of snuck up on the American public. Is that fair to say, or did you like know about this months ago? Is it just me?
I knew about it. I saw a trailer for it quite a while ago.
Yeah, I
And
just was
I was
like
like gung ho
taken
excited
aback
for it
by
then
it.
because I love Godzilla movies anyway.
Me
Like
too.
I was always going to go to a theater to see this anyway. But I think it's more how well this film is performing. I think it had one of the lowest ever drops, like percentage
Yeah.
wise drops in terms of weeks of being in the theater. I think it only dropped like what 25% or something like that. Like it is
Yeah.
still raking in tickets on a nothing budget for a movie of this type, like an
15
absolutely
million. I would
meaningless
hate to.
budget.
I mean, I feel like we beat up the Flash on this show every week since that was officially our first episode together. But dude, 15 million for this. I mean, this needs to be. It actually made the top 20 like short list that they sent to the Academy for visual effects this year. So I don't know if it'll make the final 5 for nominees, but I see it. Like I would be like, yeah, absolutely, that should be nominated.
I
You
just
know,
want
I
to see it
mean,
because I want to see in the reels like Godzilla swimming up behind the boat
yeah, dude,
in the
in the
promo
little
reels at the
clips,
Oscars. That's what I want to see.
bro.
Give it to me.
But yeah, I mean, this is so well done. I think we've covered it, but I mean, it's just so well done on so many different levels. The performances, the human parts, the Godzilla parts, the effects, the freaking score, the music. Like it really is an emotionally investing movie that you're not expecting because it's a Godzilla movie, but you still get the Godzilla stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so the dips in the movie watching experience, quote unquote dips where there's not action, you're still into it because of what's happening with the people that you're following. And that's a rare thing for any movie. But it's definitely not something you really necessarily expect when you sit down for a Godzilla movie. And I loved it.
Yeah. And I mean I love like the only other person that survives the attack on the island at Odo Island, like gives him the pictures of like the families, like the personal photos of all the other people that were killed there. You know, that definitely aids in Shikishima's survivor's guilt and everything like that. And then I love that it's that character. They bring that character back and he's the one that gets the plane ready and like loads it up with the bomb and like all that kind of different stuff like that. But then like you kind of get an inkling that the character is going to survive. Like you kind of, because they do that purposeful scene where they cut away when he leans in there and he tells him something, but they don't tell us what it is until they can like
Hmm.
dramatically reveal it to the audience later.
Hmm.
Like it kind of, I was kind of like the journey that this character's gone on. I'm like, there's no way he's actually still going to sacrifice himself. Like he's definitely going to bail out of this thing because throwing your life away uselessly, like, you know, like letting go of that guilt and living and making a good life for yourself, for your found family and everything like that is everything. But I really, really did love that scene when they cut back to
Me
that
too.
scene after he ejects. And, you know, he basically tells him, he's like,
You
you've
just
got
gotta
to
live, man.
live. Like you
Mhm.
have to live. You know, like throwing your
And I
life away
think
needlessly is not going to mean anything here.
and I think that's why he did is
Yeah.
because that guy of all people was like, dude, don't do this. You know,
Yeah.
like there's other ways to get around this. I installed this ejector seat and blah blah blah. Like in other words, if that specific, like his friends on the boat or whatever had all, you know, there was a whole thing where they're like, don't do it, you know, and they were trying to follow where he was going to be or whatever. But I don't think that he would have changed his, you know, suicide bomber mentality had it not been for that interaction.
I
Because
agree.
yeah. And I
I
think that was
agree. Like
huge.
it
And that
had
was
to
another
be,
emotional piece too.
yeah, it had to be that character because, you know, I mean, I think the only other way that they possibly could have done that is if he had found out like right before he took off that Noriko had survived, but he doesn't find that out
Right.
until after that. So like, I
Right.
really think like, but yeah, I just, I really, really love like all the dramatic beats in this film. I mean, this like remove the Godzilla elements from this film. It's basically like a dramatic post-war film like about
Mhm.
PTSD, about survivor's guilt, about all of those terrible things that we get swept up in war. And then it also, like I said, it's got a whole lot of national pride and everything like that
Mhm.
all wrapped up in it, taking up arms, like, you know, your government and like allied governments, no one will do anything to help you do this thing, so you take it upon yourself. You're tired of war, you're over this thing, so you know you arm yourself to go fight one last battle to try to save your country, save your home, save your people, and all that kind of stuff like that.
Yep.
It's just everything about it is so good. There's a beauty and a poetry to this film that I think is just incredible. Like I said, I really like the performances. I think there's a lot of good emotion in this, and it's got just the meanest, angriest Godzilla that I can remember in recent memory, just absolutely annihilating everything in its path, just doing what Godzilla do.
Doing what he do. Real quick before we wrap up, sequel stuff in your head. Like obviously the very, very end of the movie, we kind of get a sense that, the Godzilla organism or whatever you want to call it is not dead and it's going to regenerate over time or whatever. So he's still going to be around. Is that cool with you? Did you like that kind of cliffhanger ending?
Yeah. Give it all to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I really the biggest thing that I'll struggle with, I'll be the first in line to see a sequel to this movie. I loved it a lot, but I really, really worry about where you take a human story from here.
Mm-hmm.
I really worry about how you write that next
How are you
compelling
going to do
human
it that
story
good? Yeah.
in this thing. Here's a real question, G. Here's a real question. Do you make it a direct sequel like in the same time frame, or do you fast forward it a bit into a different era? Do you abandon these characters entirely and give us all new characters in the movie? Because I'm a firm believer, like in these kinds of movies, I don't really think you need to keep the same cast. I don't think you need to bring these characters forward because their journey's done. Like his survivor's guilt, like this whole movie is about him getting past like the war. Like he says multiple times throughout this movie, the war is not over for me. The war is not over for me. And his
And
war
she
is
says,
finally
"Is your war
over at
over?"
the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she asks him at the end. Is your war over? And like he can finally
Yeah.
let that go. He can finally embrace her, embrace their family unit.
Yeah.
Like,
I think if they decide to use this core group of characters, the main benefit would be people that love this movie are already going to be connected to them. But I think it would have to be a time jump where maybe the little girl was grown up, maybe she's like in her 30s or something. And
something I don't know. I don't know how
he's
you bring this
older,
cast
so
up. But
he's
then
like,
again, she's
yeah.
like Noriko is like is like poisoned with something. Like, did you see that thing in her neck? Like there was this like something. You got to rewatch that scene at the hospital, man, because there's a thing. There's like in the hospital, like they're like when they're hugging, like there's a deliberate shot of her neck in the frame. There's like this black something that like crawls up.
Oh,
like
I think
this
I do
inside of her
recall
skin.
that. I do recall that.
So
vaguely.
there's something going on with her. Whether is Noriko going to turn into a Godzilla monster or something? Who knows? I don't really necessarily know. Maybe there's some sequel bait there or something like that. But I mean, I think you have to. You've set too high a precedent with this movie with the human story. That's kind of, man. If this movie's going to have one failing, is it's the precedent that it sets for other monster movies to come on how good you actually can make a human story in this type of movie. Right. If like Godzilla, Kong, like whatever the team up movie is, because like that trailer literally dropped around the time that this came out. Mm-hmm. Like, is that movie going to come out and just have an absolute dud of a human story again? Are we going to get more podcast or conspiracy theorists?
Yeah, I think that's going to be. I mean, I don't know because obviously it's not out yet, but I think that's going to be more like a Michael Bay type situation where it's just monsters attacking each other, shit blowing up, which I mean is great, but it's not going to bring that duality that this film brought, which I think is what made this so good, but so surprising. Like I feel like me and you could have done this review for a new Godzilla movie, and regardless, it could have easily been like a 7 or 8 out of 10, But I think that all that little extra stuff that I frankly wasn't really expecting with this kind of movie is what really drove it to like exceed my expectations to where I'm just like, well, I got to get this a fucking 10. I mean, it's blew me away in so many different feelings of, the action stuff that I salivate for that kind of stuff on the big screen, but then also this like stuff where I'm like tearing up, and then like leaving the theater and having my 10-year-old talk about it's the fucking greatest movie he's ever seen, like it's just so many different things that I will keep with me from this movie experience. I'm so glad I got to see it on the big screen. And like we said earlier, guys, they did extend the theatrical release for this in a lot of cities, so it is still playing through the holiday if you get a chance to check it out.
See it.
Godzilla -1. 10s across the board, Nick. 10 from me, 10 from you, and a 10 from the P's. Godzilla -1.
It's so good. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, and one of the best movies of the year, easy.
It's like you said, it blows your expectations out of the water, like they blow Godzilla's face out of the water with that mine that he's shooting at right here in the in the shot that I'm in front of here.
No diggity, no doubt. So to wrap up the episode, guys, I'm going to head over and let you know what the schedule is because we're coming up to the end of the year. So next week we will not have a review because it's Christmas and we have to be with our families. Nick, I don't know why they won't let us record on Christmas Eve, but I guess I'll give it to them. So we won't be recording an episode next week, but listen, we have 2 more review episodes before we do our top 5 of 2023. So we're going to do Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon coming off of Christmas week. Holy Lord, the feedback on that movie so far. I actually muted it on Twitter yesterday because I was like, I don't want to see any more of this. This is crazy. And then we will do Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things, or at least that's the plan, which is getting a lot of Oscar buzz for Emma Stone and Willem Dafoe. We'll check that out. Mark Ruffalo as well. Yep. And then we will come in with a special guest that I'm not going to announce quite yet, but we're going to have a very special guest joining the show the week of the 15th when we do
can I guess who it is?
5.
Can I guess?
2023.
I'm going to guess who it is. Okay.
Godzilla.
I can't even get the button in there before he guesses it. Fine.
We have the same humor, so I kind of thought you were going there.
But we're also gonna do like there's a lot of other stuff. Like Maestro's coming out. I really do want to see Maestro. I honest to God, like life is so chaotic for me right now. I couldn't get to a theater. We're still gonna do like some shorter reviews of stuff on Patreon. And different things like that for Patreon. So we really do appreciate again. Thank you so much everybody for all of your amazing support over there. We're going to get some content over there. Maybe we'll even do some top 5 lists and Gerald will round it out to his top 10, much to everyone's annoyance because he won't just do a top 10 show.
Always. Although I haven't been doing that on my top 5s on YouTube. I don't know if you noticed, but I've only given like 2 or 3 honorables and I've been waiting for somebody to call me out that I haven't rounded out my top 10.
I only watch the episodes on YouTube that I'm in because I need to look at my own face while I listen to you.
That's 100% fair. I don't really know what to say about that. I feel like maybe you should talk to someone about that. You have to see yourself while you hear me talk. I like that. All right. Well, there you go, guys. Godzilla -1, obviously a high recommend from the P's. And we will be back in 2 weeks for our review of Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon.
Part 1.
Part 1 somehow.
A Child of Fire. Get it? So, the whole thing. You got to get the whole thing.
Is a Child of Fire is in there too?
A Child of Fire is in there too. Yes, it has a subtitle and everything. You got to get it all in there.
Holy God. Okay, so that's going to be a treat to discuss. I don't know about to watch, but it'll be a treat to
Gerald's
discuss.
going to hate it so much, and I can't wait.
I'm not a big
even if I like it, even if I dislike it, whatever, I can't wait for the deliciousness of Gerald's hate.
I can't do the slow motion music video shit that he does.
I cannot wait. Gerald's going to hate it so much.
All right. Well,
this is going to be your dumb money for this podcast. This is going to be your dumb money.
Do you want to guess what let's guess real quick and we'll come back to this. What am I going to give Rebel Moon, you think?
3.
And I'll guess what I'm going to give it. You say a 3?
3.
I'm guessing I'll give it like a 5.
Wow. That's way optimistic for you for a Zack Snyder film.
We'll see. All right. But when we do our scores for that episode, we have to do it in slow motion. I'll have to get Dan to like edit in some slow-mo or something. I don't know. We're just talking shit about Zack Snyder now. Sorry. All right, that's it for this week's episode. I hope everyone has a great Christmas. Seriously, happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, everybody.
You guys are awesome, and I hope you get some good time in with the family and friends and eat well and get lots of good presents from Santa and all that good stuff. But a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all the Peas listeners out there. Nick, that goes for you as well, buddy. I'll get together with you in a couple weeks, and we'll reconvene in the Zack Snyder universe over there.
I just felt like pushing it one more time. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Take good care of yourselves, and have an amazing holiday. We'll see you soon.